Genya Shinazugawa is an interesting character within the ranks of the Demon Slaying Corps, as he is one of the few named characters throughout the whole of Demon Slayer's story who fights without the use of a specific breathing style. Instead, he creates or utilizes alternative methods which help him achieve his goals. And it is this aspect of his character that honestly makes him such an enjoyable one to follow throughout fights. Though, every person in the world of Demon Slayer would have some sort of elemental connection, no matter how faint. Thus, I was curious that, if we examined the elements that we know of already, we could likely determine which of the breathing styles that Genya could have been compatible with. This video will contain partial spoilers for the story of Demon Slayer. There won't be any major plot elements discussed, but there will be scenes shown from arcs beyond what the anime has covered. So, if you are not up to date, you have been warned. Now, before we start this video, I do want to make it clear that Kimetsu no Yaiba does directly state throughout multiple times in the story that for some reason, Genya is unable to perform breathing techniques. And while it is likely due to his lacking physique, it isn't ever directly explained. And even though he can't perform the techniques, that doesn't mean that Genya doesn't possess some sort of elemental affinity, just that he has never been able to properly utilize it. So the purpose of this video is to determine from the information that we have on all the known breathing styles, which one Genya would likely have learned if he both wasn't trying to rush his progress through the Demon Slaying Corps, and could naturally perform slaying styles. So, to get started, we must first understand the natural elements of the slaying styles within the universe of Kimetsu no Yaiba, as there are 5 major elemental breathing styles that all derive from sun breathing, as well as 6 different sub-styles that branch off from the core 5. As well, all 11 of these different styles each require their own unique intensive training routines in order to learn it, let alone master it. And one of the quickest ways to identify someone's elemental affinity is to simply look at their Nichiren blade. This blade is a special weapon of the Demon Slaying Corps and is made from a solar-charged metal that changes colors in order to match the wielder's own nature. This color-changing ability of the blade is even applied to sub-styles or entirely self-made styles as well, seen best in both Inosuke and Mitsuri's own Nichirens. And each of them have a color associated with a specific element, so let's go through each and identify them. Firstly, we have Flame-breathing style, which its color is red. Then you have water, which is blue, wind, which is green, thunder, which is yellow, and stone, which is gray. And those are the main 5 core elements. Then you have the color of the sub-styles. Love is hot pink, flower is lightish red, insect is lavenderish blue, while serpent is just regular lavender, sound is an amber color, mist is a silvery blue, and beast is livid, or bluish gray. Now, the source of these colors are likely generated from a realm within the user's subconscious, where something called a spiritual core exists. Now, this core is a small, fragile, marble-like object that is tied directly to the person's mind. It could be in some way considered their soul, for lack of a better term. Now, this core also emulates an element that influences the person's own actions and shapes what their subconscious is like. A great example of this is seen in Rengoku's spiritual core being this bright red, which causes his subconscious to become a blazing inferno, which is then reflected in his flaming heart. As well, this explains why he has such a strong connection to the flame-breathing style, and of course why his Nichiren's blade glows a bright red. And it's this spiritual core that can also seemingly influence the element of a person's physical appearance as well, with it likely being the reason why the Rengoku's family hair ends up that way. And even swordsmiths are seemingly aware of this element of the Nichiren and a Slayer, as there was some expectations that Tanjiro's Nichiren would glow a bright red based on his hair and eye color. Yet, sadly, Genya is kinda lacking in any real physical traits that could be associated with a specific color, with his hair and eyes being naturally blackish brown. As well, the only real color associated with Genya comes from his Volume 3 cover, where his hair is highlighted with yellow tips, and his shotgun shells are green in color. Though later into the video, I'll explain why neither of these really matter too much. I should mention that this change in Genya's hair color is mainly an anime and volume cover exclusive thing, and doesn't actually appear to happen in the source material's main work. Now that the color we see from Genya's own Nichiren is that of gray, which, logically through color association, may have you conclude that Genya has an elemental affinity with stone breathing. We even see that Gyomei took him in under his wing and began personally training him during the events of the story, specifically after learning that Genya had begun eating demons during his mission. Gyomei seemingly wanted to turn Genya into his successor as well, before learning that he lacked the skills to use slaying styles effectively, and instead opted to teach him an alternate method called repetitive action. So we can confirm that Genya has no real talent when it comes to stone breathing. So then, what's up with his Nichiren? Well, interestingly enough, colorless blades aren't all that uncommon for the color-changing blade, as we can see right from my boy Big Dick Murata, a veteran demon slayer who has been a member of the Corps as long as the Water Hashira Gyu has, and is a confirmed practitioner of water-breathing style, yet his Nichiren is still colorless and gray, like a stone-breathing slayer. This is because Murata's water-breathing affinity, while present, is extremely meek, causing his elemental attacks to basically be invisible compared to other water-breathing style users. As well, his blade doesn't change color, so with Murata in mind, we can say that the color of one's Nichiren blade does not guarantee a sign of their breathing style affinity. Now, beyond the Nichiren, I should also mention that you can't brute force a style as well, as those who are not properly aligned with a slaying style, even if they have a fantastic teacher and a one-of-a-kind body, will find that they can never properly perform the katas, with one great example of this being Mitsuri, who is shown to be unable to perform flame-breathing style katas, even after working at them with Rengoku for 8 months. So with this in mind, we can actually try to directly eliminate styles from Genya's option list based on things that we've seen throughout the series. So let's start first with the obvious, stone breathing. It is confirmed without a shadow of a doubt to be out of the question thanks to his training with Gyomei. As well, in the same vein, we can likely eliminate wind breathing from the possible pool of styles that Genya would have had available to him, as while his brother was the wind Hashira, breathing compatibility is not a hereditary trait. As well, it is only natural to believe that Genya would have already attempted to try to learn wind breathing early on into his Slayer career, as his entire purpose for joining the Corps was to get closer to his brother, the wind Hashira. So it was most likely the first thing he attempted, and maybe how he figured out that he wasn't able to perform any breathing styles at all. And while we are only able to eliminate these two styles and their sub-styles, there are other traits that Demon Slayers naturally possess that may help give us insight into Genya's own affinity. This of course being, which of the major 5 senses is inherently superior to the others. As one common element seen throughout the series is that talented Demon Slayers all have one of their natural 5 senses greatly enhanced since birth. This includes Genya, and in some cases, these senses even become vital for the practitioner of a specific breathing style's katas, best seen in Kanao, whose eyesight is a major factor in the flower breathing style's final form, which to me also implies that Kane also possessed powerful eyesight as well. Then of course you have thunder breathing, and the sense strongly associated with it, that being hearing, with both Tengen and Zenitsu both possessing a unique form of superhuman hearing. They then utilize this hearing in their breathing styles to perform their katas in ways that only people with these enhanced senses could do. The same seems to also be true for water breathing style users, where their unique sense is that of smell, which allows them to read a person's movements or emotions and then strike accordingly. One of the only strange ones is the sense of touch, which is only weird because it's mostly associated with Inosuke, and it allows him to have a somewhat sixth sense, as he can feel the changes in air via vibrations, which he can then react to. As well, he can seemingly shift around his own body's internal organs. Now, given that beast breathing is an offshoot of wind breathing, Saname also seems to demonstrate a similar bodily mastery, being able to tighten his muscles in order to close his wounds without losing any stamina in the process, so it's possible that he has a heightened sense of touch as well. Though Genya's specific enhanced sense is that of taste, which plays right into his rare demon-eating ability, and is not shared by anyone else in the series that we see. Though we are told by the first rank Kizuki that there was another demon slayer roughly 300 years in the past who used to eat demons as well. This man existed roughly around the 1600s during the Edo period of Japanese history, or more specifically, less than 100 years after the introduction of slaying styles as a whole. Though this previous user's potency was much weaker than that of Genya's. As well, depending on the era that this encounter took place, it's likely that this demon-eating slayer used a slaying style, and it would have likely been one of the main 5 elements, as while some of the offshoots existed before the characters in the story, like with mist breathing, the core elements to truly combat demons were rather new at the time. So with thunder, water, and arguably wind all being taken up by their aforementioned senses, and we know that Genya is not compatible with stone breathing, there only remains one main elemental breathing style left, this being flame breathing style, which, luckily for him, is always looking for new, unique, and qualified trainees. Yet, just as unlucky, due to the events of the story, it's rather likely that Genya wouldn't have even met Rengoku, let alone trained with him. As not only had he begun secretly training with Gyomei, someone who quickly became basically a missing father figure in Genya's life, so he wouldn't really want to train with anyone else, it was also around the time that Rengoku had took on his last mission. And even more upsetting, unlike other breathing styles who have multiple teachers around the region, flame breathing is a family tradition, and the instructions for it were destroyed, alongside the only flame-breathing user left being a drunkard who is grieving the loss of half his family. So Genya doesn't really have many options in this category. Though, to slightly reinforce Genya's own possible connection to flame breathing, all those who have practiced it possess some sort of intense appetite and a high tolerance for food. The two best examples that we see have intense personalities as well that is in part influenced by the taste of their meals, with Mitsuri often shown snacking on large numbers of sweets to the point that she even gives off a sweet smell to her, while also being incredibly sweet as a person in general. Whereas Rengoku's eating habits reflect his own warrior spirit, replicating a traditional samurai practice where they would savor every meal as if it was their last. They would do so especially on nights before major battles, and often loudly proclaim their enjoyment of a hearty meal by letting out a loud "umai," or delicious. And while neither of these examples demonstrate superhuman taste, I do feel that their appetites being important to their characters falls into relatively the same realm. So with everything I was able to find, I think I can say that Genya's natural affinity was towards that of flames. Or at least that is my best guess based off the factors that we've found throughout the series. But it is also always likely that Genya's special breathing-based alignment is something that hadn't been founded yet, and he didn't possess the skills or patience to cultivate a style of his own. If I were to guess at this, I would assume it's something like steel breathing or some sort of metal-related breathing style that relates not only to his stone Hashira training, but also works well with my estimated fire breathing relation and the heat used to forge steel, which of course ties back to the steel barrel of a gun, as Genya is actually much more talented with a gun than a sword, being a skilled marksman and of course converting his special scarlet iron rounds that he received from Final Selection into shotgun shells. So it's possible that he could have founded a style that was all about using long-ranged options. Though, overall, while this speculation was fun, Genya's lack of a breathing style is what makes his character so interesting to follow, creating new methods in order to make up for his own weaknesses, as well as his willingness to eat demons being a great element of his character, showing all the things he was willing to sacrifice in order to climb the ranks of the Corps as fast as he could. He is genuinely one of the best characters in all of Kimetsu no Yaiba, and I love him a lot. So, do you agree with my assessment of Genya's own affinities, or did I miss something? I know that there is one more specific breathing style, which is an offshoot of sun breathing that I didn't mention, but those who know what I'm talking about likely know why I didn't. But speaking of that, there is one detail I did want to mention, but couldn't really find a good point for it, and that is the ball bearings of Genya's shotgun shells, as the color they take on and are often depicted as is black, similar to that of Tanjiro's blade, and it is seemingly made of the same Nichiren metal. And the reason I didn't focus on it is I felt that it was unclear if they were black because of the color changing effect of the metal, or if it was just the result of being turned into ammunition. Either way, its darker color may actually be indicative that Genya's true element might be more lunar. Though with that all said and done, I hope you enjoyed this video. I had a lot of fun making it, and if you want to support more videos like it in the future, I have a Patreon at patreon.com/MediNotTheBadGuy. Every little bit helps keep this channel flowing as smoothly as it does, and if you want to find your own elemental affinity, well, you can do so by buying a copy of Shimonetta, a Borg world where the concept of dirty jokes doesn't exist at buyshimonetta.com.